What is up, everybody, and welcome to another installment of our Buying for Beginners series. This time we're focusing on the Noble Knights of Bretonnia. And like all our other Buying for Beginner videos, we'll be focusing on 3 competitive army lists and explaining the best value for money options for the units in each of those lists. Unfortunately, the Bretonnian range, much like the Tomb Kings, was completely abandoned by Games Workshop when they ended Warhammer Fantasy. And so we're going to have to use exclusively third-party models in this Buying for Beginners. It's not something we usually do, but we really don't have a choice with the Bretonnians. I'm sure any prospective Bretonnian lord or lady will have seen multitude of 3D printing files available, which make excellent proxies for Bretonnians. And there is no doubt that some, Highlands miniatures in particular, are lovely models. In this video though, I'll be avoiding these as much as I can. The reason is simple. Not everyone has access to a 3D printer. It's all well and good me saying that the most cost-effective way to get a Bretonnian army is to print one. And that'd probably be a fair statement to make. But that doesn't help the people who haven't got the space, or money, or skill to set up and use a 3D printer well. So in today's video, I'm going to focus primarily on alternative models you can buy to use as a Bretonnian army. And I'm going to try and keep it all from the same manufacturer as much as possible to keep the overall aesthetic the same. Now on to the main event. I'm going to go through some competitive army lists and take you through exactly what you need to buy for each unit or character and give you the best cost I could find for each of them. The first list is going to be 1500 points, the second will be 2000, and the final one will be a Triple Crown Wargaming event standard 2500 point list. In each one, I'll try to keep as many of the units and characters the same so you can slowly build up your Bretonnian force and not end up with units sitting in a case gathering dust by the end of it. Although I think all of us are guilty of having those units that we used to use and no longer do. So, the 1500 point list I've got on me today consists of a level 4 Prophetess of the Lady on the Law of Heavens. She is mounted on a Bretonnian Warhorse and has the Silver Mirror. On to heroes, and I have a Paladin Battle Standard Bearer on a Barded Bretonnian Warhorse with the Knight's Vow, the Biting Blade, the Enchanted Shield, and the Virtue of Duty. I also have a level 2 Damsel the Lady on the Law of Beasts, mounted on a Bretonnian Warhorse with a Dispel scroll. Onto the core for this list, and I have 12 Knights Errant with a Musician Standard Bearer, because like all Bretonnian Knights, they come with a champion for free. This Standard Bearer is also carrying the Errantry banner. My second unit of core is a unit of 9 Knights of the Realm, again with Musician and Standard Bearer, because they come with a champion. And the Standard Bearer is carrying the banner of Swiftness. Moving into special, and I have a single unit of 5 Mounted Yeomen with no upgrades, and a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights, also with no upgrades other than the champion they come with. Finally, onto rare, I have 2 Field Trebuchets to round out the list at exactly 1500 points. Now, it is worth saying that at this point, I haven't used the Triple Crown comp rules when I've built any of the lists today. They've come straight from the Iron Book and using the last FAQ Games Workshop put out. That means the magic items and virtues are going to be coming from the same points allowance on the characters. And none of the knights, will get devastating charge. If you do decide to use the Triple Crown comp rules, that will give you a little more flexibility on some items and virtue combos that weren't possible here. As ever, if you have any ideas you want to run by us to get our opinions, then feel free to email us at thetriplecrownguys@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook or Instagram. Right, onto the models then. So what are your best value options for the list? Well, first of all, we'll start with the characters, and in particular, the wizards. The best looking model I could find is from Game Zone Miniatures, and it's the Mounted Sorceress with Parchment from the Feudal Knights range. You get the choice of metal or plastic resin, with the former costing €19.50 and the latter costing €10.50, or just under £9 before shipping. You could do pretty much the whole Bretonnian army from Game Zone, and it would look fantastic. However, when you start buying a larger number of the models for your units, the price does add up really quickly. So for us, I'm just going to use them for the characters, and for both the wizards in this list, that will come to around £18. Onto the Paladin BSB, and again, we're going to stick with Game Zone. They don't have a specific Battle Standard Bearer model, which could be an issue if you wanted to do the whole army from them. However, they do have a really nice Grailed Knight Standard Bearer for €12 in plastic resin, or €22 in metal, and that's about £10 or £19 respectively. Now, he doesn't have the Grauval in this list, so you may not want him to be adorned with any images of the Grail, in which case you could go for the Feudal Knight Standard Bearer. Again, he comes in either plastic resin or metal at the same price as the Grail Knight. Personally, though, I want my characters to really stand out from their units, so I'd always go for the Grail Knight Standard Bearer, adding another £10 to our total so far. Onto the core now, and first we have up the 12 Knights Errant. Now, for all of our Knight units, I would go for Fireforge. I think they do the best scaled and best looking proxies out there. For Knights Errant, I would go for their Templar Knights from the historic medieval military orders range. These come in a box of 12, helpfully, and include all the options you need for command. The box does only come with 6 barded horses along with 6 unbarded horses, however. I think this just helps to distinguish your lowly Knights Errant from your fully fledged Knights of the Realm. If you wanted all barded war horses, Fireforge do sell sprues of 4 medieval barded horses for €12, or about £10. So you have the option to make all your knights with barding. For this though, I'm going to stick with exactly what comes in the box to get all my Knights Errant for €27, or about £23. And to round out the core, we have 9 Knights of the Realm, and again I'm going to go with Fireforge. Now you could stick with Templar Knights we use for the Knights Errant, and maybe paint them a bit differently to differentiate them. Or purchase a sprue of barded horses so all of your Knights of the Realm can be built with them if you haven't got them for your Knights Errant. I prefer the idea of them looking a bit more noticeably different, though, so I would go with the Fireforged Teutonic Knights. And these are from the same range as the Templar Knights we've just seen. Again, these come in a box of 12, so you have a few spare. However, they come with 12 barded horses instead of just 6 like the Templar Knights. You also get all the command options you need in the box as well. These are exactly the same price as the Templar Knights at €27 or £23. With the core out of the way, let's move on to Special and the Mounted Yeomen. Sticking with Fireforge for these, however, I'd move on to another of their ranges, and I'd go for their Northman Cavalry from the Forgotten World's Northern Kingdoms range. You get 6 in a box, and you get options for a champion, musician, and standard bearer, although you don't have to build any of them. You also get the option to build them with either lances or swords. I know Mounted Yeomen only have spears, but compared to the lances on your other knights, these are going to look a lot smaller in comparison. So I definitely think they should work as spears. And you also get the option to have them with shields or just holding the reins. So great if you wanted to upgrade your yeomen to have shields in the future list. These are €20 per box, which is about £17. The next unit is Pegasus Knights. Again, Fireforge have us covered with their Pegasus Knights from the Forgotten Kingdoms Albion range. These come in a box of 4 for €32, or about £27. You don't get any command options other than a sword which you could use as a champion. So if you ever wanted to upgrade your Pegasus Knights to have any command, you'd have to use the options from another kit. As I mentioned before, with Fireforge selling horse sprues separately, they do also sell command sprues for some of the different types of knights separately. So you could pick one of the Templar or Teutonic Knight command sprues and use the banner and or trumpet from there. And then finally, we're moving on to the rare slot for the first list and the 2 field trebuchets. Now, unfortunately, Fireforge don't do anything like a trebuchet in any of their ranges, so you'll have to look elsewhere. The nicest looking trebuchet model I could find that wasn't 3D printed was the Games Workshop Gondor Battle Cry trebuchet from the Middle Earth range. You would have to change the crew though, and as you don't have any other infantry in your army, that would mean you'd have to buy a whole other box just for our 4 crew members, which isn't really cost effective. So despite what I said at the beginning about avoiding 3D printed models, I'm going to recommend Highland Miniatures Trebuchet. It looks similar to the old GW Bretonnian Trebuchet and comes with their crew. Now I know many of you have been screaming at your screens that you don't have a 3D printer. Well, fortunately, there are companies out there from whom you can buy the printed models from. All you need to do is tell them the scale you want it printed at, and they'll send you a complete model. I found this trebuchet on sale from Weird Farm Miniatures for 249 kroner, or about £21. We need 2 for the list, so that's £42 for the pair to round out the 1500 point list. We're up to a total of just £160. That is assuming you haven't bought the extra barded war horses for your Knight Errant. If you did, then the total will go up to £180, and you'd have 2 spare barded war horses. Those totals do include a few spare Knights of the Realm, a spare Mounted Yeoman, and a spare Pegasus knight. So there is that room for a little change in the list without costing you any more money. That's looking like really good value so far for any army that's traditionally seen as a super expensive to get into. Next then, I'm going to move into the 2,000 point list. This contains a level 4 Prophetess of the Lady on the Law of Heavens, who is exactly the same as before, mounted on a Bretonnian Warhorse with a silver mirror. I then have the exact same Damsel and Paladin BSB as the previous list, so that's a level 2 on the Law of Beasts, mounted on a Bretonnian Warhorse with a spell scroll, and the Paladin is mounted on a Barded Bretonnian Warhorse with a Knight's Vow, Biting Blade, Enchanted Shield, and the Virtue of Duty. The first addition to this list, though, is a second Paladin. He is also mounted on a Bretonnian Barded Warhorse, and he also has the Knight's Vow. He's armed with a lance, a shield, the Luckstone, the Potion of Foolhardiness, and the Virtue of the Impetuous Knight. The core for this list is exactly the same as the previous list, which is 12 Knights Errant with full command and the Errantry banner, and 9 Knights of the Realm with full command and the banner of Swiftness. The special is also very similar. I've still got a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights with no additional upgrades. This time though, I have 2 units of Mounted Yeomen instead of the 1, and both have musicians. Finally, onto rare, and I have dropped one of the trebuchets, so I'm down to just 1, and I have instead gone for a unit of 9 Grail Knights with a musician and standard bearer to round it off at 1,996 points. There aren't a lot of additional purchases needed for this list over the first. It's only 1 Paladin, an additional box of Northmen cavalry for the second unit of Mounted Yeomen, and the Grail Knights. So for that Paladin, then we're going to go back to Game Zone miniatures, and this time I'm going to pick the Grail Knight hero. Just like our other Game Zone characters, he comes in either plastic resin for €10.50, or about £9, or a metal one for €19.50, or about £16.50. Again, he doesn't have the Grail Vow, so you may prefer to not use a Grail Knight model, and Game Zone have a really good selection of individually sold Errant Knights or Feudal Knights, which are their equivalent of the Knights of the Realm to choose from. For now though, I'm going to go with this Grail Knight for just £9. Onto the Mounted Yeomen then, and you have to pick up another box of Northmen Cavalry for £17 for this list. Both boxes come with the options for musician anyway, so you don't need to worry about picking that up from somewhere else. Also, because they come in boxes of 6, you can build 5 ordinary Mounted Yeomen from your first box for your list, and still have a spare to swap one to a musician in this list without needing to cut any arms off any models you've already built. Really helpful if you're slowly building this army up. Finally, for this list are the Grail Knights, and I had a lot of trouble deciding what to use for these. The Game Zone models are beautifully detailed, but as I said at the beginning of this video, they do get expensive when you're buying a whole unit. So I settled on going back to Fireforge and back to their Forgotten Realms Albion range and opting for their Albion Knights. These are €27 or £23 for a box of 12. Unfortunately though, you don't get any command options in the box, so you'll need to pick up a Commands Brew for £10 to make this unit, bringing the total for the unit to £33. And that is all you need to round up the first 1,500 point list to a 2,000 point list, and that brings the running total to £219. Just with the first list, you have some options as well. You have an extra spare Mounted Yeoman, giving you 2 spare in total, and you still have 3 spare Knights of the Realm, 1 spare Pegasus Knights, and you also now have 3 spare Grail Knights and a spare Trebuchet. So you really do have a lot of options available at this points value, without increasing the cost at all. So I'll move on to the final list of today's video, and for that I have a level 4 Prophetess the Lady on the Law of Heavens again, on a Bretonnian Warhorse with the silver mirror. I also have a Bretonnian Lord mounted on a Barded Bretonnian Warhorse with the Grail Vow, a shield, the Gromrel Great Helm, Sword of the Lady's Champion, and the Virtue of Audacity. Onto the hero slot, and I have the exact same characters as in the 2,000 point list. A level 2 Damsel Our Lady on the Law of Beasts, mounted on a Bretonnian Warhorse with a spell scroll. A Paladin BSB mounted on a Barded Bretonnian Warhorse with a Knight's Vow, Biting Blade, Enchanted Shield, and the Virtue of Duty. And a Paladin mounted on a Barded Bretonnian Warhorse with a Knight's Vow, a Lance, Shield, the Luckstone, Potion of Foolhardiness, and the Virtue of the Impetuous Knight. I have the same units as before in my core, but I've made them a little bigger. So this time I have a unit of 14 Knights Errant with full command and the Errantry banner, and a unit of 12 Knights of the Realm with full command and the banner of Swiftness. The special slot is the exact same as the 2,000 point list, 2 units of 5 Mounted Yeomen, both musicians, and a unit of 3 Pegasus Knights. Finally, for rare, I've gone back to that 2 fuel trebuchets, as well as a unit of 10 Ground Knights with musician and standard bearer, and that comes out to 2,498 points. Just like with the 2,000 point list over the 1,500 point list, there isn't actually a lot more to add into this to make it 2,500 points. We just need a Bretonnian Lord, 2 extra Knights Errant, 3 extra Knights of the Realm, and 1 extra Ground Knight. We've already purchased the second trebuchet from the first list, so there's no more to add for them. If you already have been slowly building up your Bretonnian force and have got the models we suggested for the first 2 lists, then you will already have enough Knights of the Realm and Ground Knights to fill out this list. All you actually need to buy is the Bretonnian Lord and the extra Knights Errant. So the Bretonnian Lord first then, and I'm going to go back to Game Zone and this time go for their Feudal Lord. Just like most of their other characters, he comes in at either €10.50 in plastic resin or €19.50 in metal. So that works out to just about £9 if you go for the plastic resin version. Onto the Knights Errant, and there are a couple of ways you can go about doing this. We've used Templar Knights from Fireforge for the first 2 lists, and I'm not recommending you change now. However, you're going to need to buy a whole new box of 12 for the 2 extra you need in this list. That does only come in at about £23, so it's not the biggest investment, and it does give you a lot of spares options if you want to change the list up slightly. And that's it. That's all you need to make 2,000 point list I went through earlier into this 2,500 point list. So what would that all come to? Well, assuming you've gone for all the characters in the plastic resin as opposed to metal, then your grand total would be £251. I think for a competitive 2,500 point Bretonnian army, that's a really good deal. It's worth pointing out a couple of things though. Firstly, all of the prices were converted into pounds at the rate today, so the actual prices may vary slightly. We also haven't taken into consideration international postage, which will increase the price quite a lot. On the other hand, these are all prices direct from the manufacturer, so if you can find them from any third-party stockists, and we found at least some of the units discounted from places like Element Games, then you'll save yourself some money there. You do also have quite a few options in there for different list builds. You've got 10 spare Knights Errant, 2 spare Mounted Yeomen, and 1 spare Pegasus, which could be turned into a character on a Royal Pegasus if you wanted, and 2 spare Ground Knights. All in all, quite a bit of flexibility. And if you wanted to add to your collection further and keep it with the same general aesthetic, Fireforge also do really good Men-at-Arms and Peasant Bowmen stand-ins in the Northman Warriors and Northman Bowmen. Now, it's normally at this point that I'd say something along the lines of a small note of caution is bases. However, thanks to all of these being from third-party models, they actually all come with the correct base sizes for use in Warhammer Fantasy. Now, some of the bases will look a bit different, as the Game Zone bases are clear plastic and the Fireforge bases are flat grey plastic, however, once you've put some basing on them, you never really know the difference. This definitely isn't the only way to build and run a competitive Bretonnian list without looking into special characters which are a little harder to come by third-party counterparts, although not impossible. The other competitive build would be a large block of Men-at-Arms with an on-foot character or 2 to act as an anvil, for some smaller lances and knights to then countercharge. As I said before, Fireforge do some great Men-at-Arms alternatives, and Game Zone do a really nice on-foot learned sorceress from the Feudal Knights range, which will look very familiar to anyone who has seen the GW Damsel on foot. You also still do have the option to go down the 3D printing route for any of those units or characters you just can't find a suitable replacement for. And like I showed with the trebuchets, you don't always have to be able to do the printing yourself. I hope today's snippet has helped you understand what I believe to be the best choices for a competitive Bretonnian army, and hopefully it's shown you little ways to save a bit of money too. If you've got any suggestions you think we've missed, or if you want to know what we would use for certain units that are no longer available from Games Workshop, head over to any of our socials at Facebook, Instagram and or Twitter, or email us directly, all the links for which are below, and we'll do our best to help you out. And join us next time for another instalment in our Buy for Beginners series, where we'll look at some of the other armies in the Warhammer world, or head back to the Knight of the Realm mustering ground, where you can find links to all of our other exclusive content.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?
Do it for war!